We are live. We are live on
Hey.
Big Brother. Please do not swear on YouTube. So, I am Samuel MacPaul, Viking poet, and it was going to be a three-parter, but we've changed the scenario somewhat, haven't we? And you are, sorry.
Hi, yeah. Welcome to Philosophical Tangents. I am the one and only Nightshade, Nyteshade, and it's good to be here, man. Yeah, we've changed to conspiracies, but we will get back onto culture war soon. But actually, conspiracy kind of ties into culture war, so it's pretty relevant, in a kind of way.
Oh, I would agree. I would agree. I think conspiracies are definitely something which has manifested on the right, and we discussed this last time. There are people who I know on the left who are into conspiracies, but I would say that there has been a shift on the political spectrum from left to right, and I'd say most people on the left are now quite anti-conspiracy, but there did seem to be a conspiracy left, and it seems to have dried up a little bit. So big pharma was very unpopular with a lot of people who are into kind of like more eco politics, and
Mm.
I think you seem to be, I don't know, you seem to be averse to big pharma conspiracies. Is that not true?
Well, I mean, not. It's more like the way that the conspiracy theorists use something like Big Pharma.
Mm.
They're like, yeah, it's Big Pharma, in it, and it's like, oh, it's the mainstream media, in it. It's like, it's that kind of like, I don't know, that in itself is a dogma. Like, what is Big Pharma? What is the mainstream media? It's not one big thing. So it's like normally conspiracy theorists will take like a little bit of something and maybe
Yeah.
something legitimate criticism, and then twist it into a different shape.
I mean,
And that's
Joe,
my problem. But
you know what we as prudent philosopher kings, what we should do as esteemed philosophers and an esteemed philosopher who's esteemed by your philosophy, I think what we should do is define what a conspiracy is. So Google's my best friend. So it is to make secret plans jointly
uh,
to commit an unlawful or harmful act. And I think the etymology of the word is
mm,
like to breathe life, conspire, spire. So
oh, really?
it's yeah. I like
Uh-huh.
etymology, like because I studied English literature and words are good. So I think that's an interesting place to start, because if that is the kind of watertight definition of a conspiracy, then the world
Mm,
abounds with conspiracies. There's probably there's lots and lots and lots and lots of conspiracies, like many more, which will never ever be in the realm of popular consciousness. So if that is like what we're looking for,
yeah.
then like,
Well, technically, let's say there's a roadman there, some bad
yeah,
man there,
yeah,
and he knows that there's some bad man who's like
mm,
mouthing off, yeah, and he wants to murk that man up, right?
mm,
Because he's trying to steal his weed spot or whatever.
yeah,
And he gets his boys over and he's like, yeah, we're gonna murk man up, innit?
yeah.
Is that not a conspiracy?
Yes, that
They're
is.
conspiring to break the law.
That is, yeah. That's the definition of a conspiracy: to cause harm and to break the law. So on both counts, that would be a conspiracy. So
So if he was caught, even if he didn't actually murk man down up, he still could be arrested for conspiracy or something. No? Conspiracy to
conspiracy,
murk,
yeah, conspiracy to work, yeah.
to murk man up.
But I think, so what? I think what's interesting is you use the example of a roadman, and obviously a roadman is usually found in the more impoverished ends. I
Mm.
live in as I said, like petty bourgeoisie cup, and I am the only roadman around here, so it's quite lonely. Do you know what I mean? But on a serious note, I think poverty and conspiracy theories go hand in hand. Yeah,
Mm.
like I would generally think that basically it seems to be conspiracy theories have a lot of credence with those who are in the social underclass, the criminal classes.
Mhm.
That always seems quite popular in the criminal classes, or the working classes. You'll meet a lot of people who seem to be more into them, and it seems rarer to meet them amongst the elites. So there's obviously some kind of behavioral psychological dynamic going on there. Do you think you could elaborate upon that?
Well, so I mean, I mean, yeah, it's quite. I think partly because people don't have a complete worldview, and so they're kind of their worldview is like a patchwork of different things, quite
Mm,
chaotic. Like the
mm,
person that I have been hearing a lot of conspiracies from recently will just blurt out whatever she reads, and there's no like coherency to it. So it's like a chaotic mind just like reaching out, and then it's quite a torturous state to be in because you're always anxious, and it's like, oh, it's Bill Gates and it's the Rockefellers, oh, it's Big Pharma, oh, it's this, that, and all these like weird concepts. It's like they never quite grasp what is out there. It's all quite vague, and that's how it works for a lot of people.
I would concur. I think that unfortunately, and I say unfortunately because I'm going to be honest, I used to have a lot more sympathy for conspiracy theories, but I'd say that I'm not a conspiracy theorist, but maybe conspiracy sympathetic in some I think, and let me elaborate, because for a lot of people on the left, that put me on very dodgy ground and they'll be like very hostile to me. So I think the problem is that you need historical skills to be a good intellectual, right? So you need to look at where sources come from. That's a historical skill. So you look at the provenance, like where does this source come from and who made it. So a lot of the times on Facebook, I think there's this source, and it's like World Daily News, and it's a satire site, and they just write really satirical things all the time, like man murders 5 babies with with a Big Mac or something, like something like, and everyone's like, oh, I'm outraged. I'm like, no, this is not genuine news. But people post it all the time. They don't check the news source. More people are really willing to believe things on social media without checking that news source. So I think that's the first problem with conspiracy theories. I'll give you an example. During this pandemic, there was a news story that the hospitals were full, right? And therefore, a lot of a conspiracy theorist, I think she went down to the hospital and took a video, like in the foyer, which was empty. Of course, the foyer is going to be empty. There's a pandemic. People don't want to go to hospital. But if you went to the COVID wards where the press had gone, you can see that actually they were chock-a-block. They were completely full. They were maxed.
Yeah.
Okay, so I think people look for conspiracy theories in the wrong places. Okay, and they're trying to join the dots, but they can't quite do it because they haven't been taught that, or they haven't been able to access that academic thinking of. It seems quite simple, just checking sources.
Yeah.
But most people do not, and then therefore they become victim or foul to a false sense of intuition, because what they're trying to do is connect patterns. That's what the human brain does. It connects patterns. Okay, and as a lot of these people haven't had that access to education, they fall foul of that. Whilst when I look at conspiracy theories, I think my threshold of evidence is just a lot higher. Like I need that empirical proof there. So I would say that probably quite a lot of people do believe that conspiracy theories are true when the proof is there. So but then it's a conspiracy fact, I guess. So I guess I'm talking about conspiracy facts. So again, as a historian, I'll just give an example, and I'll give an example of the Babington plot. Okay, so the Babington plot was there to destroy Queen Elizabeth and put a Catholic monarch on the throne, and they found codes in casket barrels and in our own hand. Okay, so that clearly is a conspiracy. That isn't a conspiracy theory. That's a conspiracy fact. And she faced Mary Queen of Scots faced the due process of that time. So I don't think there's anything too controversial about that. But something I did want to challenge you on was Bilderberger, actually.
We'll jump into that. I just want to address
yeah.
So first of all, allow Babingtons, isn't it? Allow Babingtons. Allow them, bro. But seriously, but Sam, that's like it's an empirical thing. You can prove it. Again, our roadman example, who's going to murk someone up, that's an experience. But these are quite small things. The bigger the conspiracy, it's not. Is it so much about crime? It becomes more like almost a metaphysical thing, doesn't it? Like what's it called? Crazy chemtrails. And the COVID conspiracy, who's behind it? It's like this New World Order, Illuminati. There's even a pseudo spirituality behind it. And it's like those are another scale of conspiracy. How do you fight them? It's like that's quite radically different from like Babington or what have you.
I'd concur. I'd concur. I don't think maybe that conspiracy fact and the conspiracy theories which have no proof are commensurate. So yeah, I see what you're saying there, but like there is one that is
But I
big.
guess
Yeah, sorry, you go
they're
ahead.
narratives, aren't they?
Mm.
Uh-huh. Uh-huh. They're just touching it. I mean, those are narratives like QAnon or whatever. They provide people with narratives, and like even if it is flagrantly false or like really unlikely, it fits their kind of narrative, so they kind of go along with it because it might give life some form and structure and meaning in that otherwise meaningless, individualistic non-society that we live in. So people can easily fall prey to it because they're just despairing. So I'll say one more thing from earlier, talking about education and empiricism, and I agree with you 100%. I think another factor in, however, is I've had some very clever friends, like great philosophers, who have just parroted right-wing propaganda, quarantine camps in New Zealand, which were actually hotels for people to stay for 2 weeks. With the stuff happening, Black Lives Matter, the Chaz thing. Oh, there's a warlord there who's extorting this, that, and the other, which is completely false. These are really intelligent people.
Yeah.
And I think the source of it comes from despair and low morale. Yeah, they're just like down. They're down on the world. And so I think it makes them weak to this like influence, these like dark influences of these nasty conspiracy people, man. So it's not, I don't think it's just intelligence and empiricism. There's also someone who is really down and really broken, I think can fall prey to some nastiness. So we got, yeah.
It's well, there's a psychological process. There's a psychological process there, and it's validating. So, say if you come from an impoverished background and you didn't do well at school, like the thing is, they are thinkers. Okay, so conspiracy, they're thinking, their minds are going in overdrive. So they're not non-thinking individuals. Generally, they feel quite sentient and quite awakened, like people. They feel like their levels of consciousness are quite high. Yeah. And it's underpinned by the fact that, okay, usually, so this is like so general, but this is a stereotype, for me, that I've got in my head of conspiracy thinkers, that they come from impoverished backgrounds, but they're skeptical, and they tend to think a lot, and they build patterns. Okay, so then they unearth something that gives them a greater field of knowledge than everyone that has kind of rejected them. Yeah. So think if you haven't done that well academically, and you didn't get on with your teachers because you're quite rebellious, and then you didn't progress quite well in academic fields. All of a sudden, you've got this knowledge, and this knowledge makes you more awakened than the entire educational system. The entire academic system makes you more intelligent than all of your friends. All of a sudden, you've been catapulted to the top of a hierarchy. So there's a lot of self-validation, through believing in conspiracy theories. I think it makes alienated people who feel, and that's another thing. These are people that feel alienated from their society, alienated from their government, not represented. It gives people with that sense of alienation a sense of superiority. Yeah, like they climb to the top of the mountain whilst everyone else is, the sheeple and thick and mainstream and not awoken. So it's a very powerful kind of I'd say an intellectual like aphrodisiac, which they've just given themselves to escape their poverty.
Yeah, I suppose. So maybe as a touch that, we were like making a bit of fun about like, oh, it's the mainstream media, bruv, it's big pharma, bruv. But obviously there is legitimate skepticism of COVID, of lockdown and mainstream media and big pharma or whatever. Like these are legitimate. There's always some legitimate criticism to be made there.
Yeah, like,
but it's like the way that it's used and the solutions proposed are like dystopian. It's quite dystopian and disturbing. People who aren't particularly well versed very politically, or they don't really know how politics works or how economics works, and yet they're making these massive overarching theories. That can be quite dangerous because I think it tends to just leave capitalism as it is. Ultimately, what's the ultimate change? They can't target and critique the thing that is actually, with lockdown. I think we might have been touching on this the other day, Sam.
Yeah.
Lockdown, it's all like, or like the COVID nightmare we're in, blaming the left, for instance, or blaming. We live under Tories. So it's like bizarre.
Yeah, I know. There do seem to be some
Bizarre.
bizarre criticisms of yeah, there are some bizarre criticisms that exist, and I don't think so. I'm just going to move my camera just slightly there. Okay,
Yeah.
right.
Yeah, I get
Sorry.
some light.
Yeah,
There you
get some light on the egg.
go. Beautiful photo. So anyway, who who watches The Watchmen? Watching The Watchmen, watch The Watchmen. The Watchmen.
Right. Anyway,
Hey,
yeah. I felt a sympathy. Anyway, I felt a sympathy for the penury of their circumstance. And yeah, Americans. Right. Shall we start again? Americans. So I think.
uh,
Oh yeah. No. Well, I asked you a question, but
banking,
you
banking.
didn't get it. Banking. Yeah, banking.
No.
So you feel uncomfortable with banking conspiracy theories?
Well, so guys, so folks, we're having technical issues here. So if it looks like it's
Yeah.
warping, it isn't
Yeah.
Bill Gates or someone trying to break up our communications. It's like just technical issues. But yeah, so banking. So like, look, I mean, my problem with this kind of thing against banking sector and globalism isn't that there's actual capitalists out there who are actually doing nasty things like the 2008 crash, like billionaires getting richer during the pandemic and so on. My problem is that people will use these grains of truth or even seeds of truth and then plant them and grow some nasty anti-Semitic plant or some nasty like conspiracy theory out of it. So they'll kind of skim around the truth, but they'll these are quite toxic, people, prejudiced and awful people who will like latch on to anything and say, "Oh, look, create anxiety and fear." That's the problem. I don't think we've touched on this, Sam. That the conspiracy theorists are like anxiety machines. They just create anxiety. You're under attack. It's always like full on, full scale. Your way of life is going to be destroyed. The Great Reset is going to reset your life. The New World Order is going to put chips in your bum, whatever. So it's like, no, seriously, RFID chips. Where else can they go? In your bum. When you go to the shop, you're not going to give money with a card. You're going to walk. You're going to turn around, and it'll scan your bum, and then that's it. You walk out with no money.
Mate,
so it's always some exaggerated shit.
That's a pain. That's a pain in the ass. That's a pain in the ass.
So just to clarify, yeah, it's not that there isn't nasty things happening in the finance sector, or globalism isn't in this incarnation bad. It's that people are taking this and then putting a very nasty slant on it, often an anti-Semitic one as well.
Yeah, so, there are anti-Semitic conspiracy theories that abound throughout the internet, and that is a poisonous thing in itself. I mean, you came up with some really good facts about the top 10 billionaires in the world are actually just like white men, and they're not Jewish. You know what I mean? Or there's one Jewish billionaire in the world's top 10 billionaires. So if if these conspiracy theories were true and Jewish people were like these like so wealthy and so powerful, then why are they not overly represented in those figures? So I think a lot of conspiracy theorists would be surprised to hear those statistics, but then would probably instantly doubt them and say, "Oh well, they've been falsified." And again, this is the problem with a conspiracy theory: you can never prove it to be false. How can you prove Paul McCartney is the real Paul McCartney?
Well, I'm pretty sure you can.
No, because do you not know the conspiracy theory around that?
Isn't the burden of proof on the people saying that he's dead, and then those of us who believe he's alive, or like New World Order? It's like, well, do you have to disprove it? They're the ones who are positing, the Illuminati mega lizards, and building a whole way of life around it. Not us. Why do I have to disprove it?
Yeah, well, I think that's another thing. So these are some basic concepts which, just our education system hasn't enforced, that the burden of proof is the person making the claim. And there are various manifestations of supernatural thinking because of that. You've got people that believe in ghosts and angels and religion, and etc. etc. So that supernatural thinking has long been part of the human condition, really. So maybe in a modern society where religion just doesn't have that natural buy-in, which it used to have, conspiracy theory is a new religion.
Yeah, it could be. I mean, but I wouldn't dispute ghosts, man. I mean, I'm not. I wouldn't go around saying people your experience of ghosts is wrong. I wouldn't, or angels or
Yeah.
whatever. Like,
Mm.
how could I possibly disprove that they may well have experienced something that's like that? It's
Mm.
more like massive overarching theories, like the New World Order. It's like, which could lead to nasty political consequences. Like the pandemic has claimed many lives, and the conspiracies around it is helping to claim even more lives. So
Yeah, I think the conspiracy theories move as well. It's like you got the God of the Gaps, you got the conspiracy theory of the gaps. So
yeah,
at first, there's no virus, it's fake,
yeah,
it doesn't exist. La la la. So that was the first one, and then when loads of people started dying, oh, there is a virus, and it was made by China. Do you know what I mean? So
yeah,
which I mean I think a lot of problems is the mystery of some things as well. Like we just don't know. Like, but when you don't know something, that's not a very comfortable situation to be in.
yeah,
And genuinely, it could have been started in a wet market in China, or it could have been started in that Wuhan laboratory. Like, you just don't know. Like, it's gonna be really hard to. I'm not a epidemiologist and virologist, and I just haven't got that expertise. And even those with the expertise don't genuinely seem to know where this virus has come from. But so, in a world where people crave certainty, that lack of knowledge is going to make people feel uncomfortable.
What's that? We don't have all the knowledge, but do you know who does? The Time Lizard, Illuminati, Double Order, World Order, government, Bill Gates, Queen. So like, I mean, they always assume that there's the total authority knows exactly what it's doing. They know exactly. They're leaving people to die. They've deliberately made it to kill people. Well, no, and also a fallacy they often commit is just because someone profits from something, it doesn't mean that they caused it to happen. It doesn't mean they're profiting. I don't think the billionaires conspired to go, okay, we're going to make the whole world, have a pandemic so we can make money. But no, but they are nasty people who are profiting from it, and they're opportunists. It's this weird, yeah. But I guess conspiracy theories also have quite a level of certainty as well. They're kind of quite zealous. They have to spread the word to all of the sleeping masses.
Well, yeah,
So
conversion. Yeah, they
yeah,
are very evangelistic, but that's because
absolutely.
according to understand their frame of mind, they think that the world is genuinely asleep and there are these really bad things happening. So if you were a good person, you genuinely believe that, then you would want to wake people up, wouldn't you? So I'm what we need to do is come to a point of understanding, okay, let's understand them. And if you want someone to stop being a conspiracy theorist, you have to talk to them. Yeah, so you
Oh
have to.
man,
Yeah,
really?
you have to get. Well, there's some
It's
people
hard.
just outthink themselves from it, and then some people they become so far removed from society that kind of isolation is just painful. So that people lose relationships with family members, with friends, and with social networks because of their
Yeah,
beliefs in these theories. They're very
yeah.
divisive. They're extremely divisive. I mean, I saw in America, even the Backstreet Boys have been torn apart. That's true.
Really?
It's true. It's true. I think there were two former best friends, and one is like QAnon, and one isn't, and they're not talking. So
I don't care who you are, where you're from,
as
what
long
you
as you
need,
tune on.
as long as you're not a time lizard. Oh, that's awful. That's tragic, man.
I know.
That's
So
not funny at all.
even popular culture is or non-popular culture is
Well,
dying.
it,
Is
it eats
dying.
people up and shits them out. But isn't it good for the actual people in power if people are running around in these divisive little groups talking about time lizards and sky snakes and whatever, as opposed to like critiquing the system? Isn't it good for them? Like, and also a lot of these people who are peddling, but like Alec, I won't say his name. I don't want to big him up, but that guy. Come on, buy my book now and take my super secret truth shake, only $15.99. These people are grifters, man. they're stacking bare pee. I think I read one of the richest authors in the world at the moment, one of the biggest conspiracy theorists.
Yeah.
Don't want to name him because I don't want
Yeah.
to give him free advertising. You know who it is.
Yeah.
Lizards,
Yeah.
Babylonians.
Do you know what?
Very
I've
rich,
read one of his.
grifters.
I've read one. Well, I didn't read all of it. I went into Waterstones and I picked up his book and just thought,
Uh-huh.
you know, I can read things for free in here. It's like a library. Like, why am I going to pay? I can just sit there for hours. They've got chairs. So, so, and his book, Mr. Lizard Man, was really expensive. But do you know what? It doesn't start out with lizards. Yeah, it starts out really kind of quasi spiritual, quasi physics, and they're really into like like when you meet a conspiracy. Oh, I'm really into physics. Are you? So do you know the third law of thermodynamics? Oh no, but everything's one. Anyway, right. So like it starts off like what I'm talking about. Right. So it starts off like that, yeah. So it starts off like bit by bit, and it's super reasonable at the beginning, and so it lures you in. It's like, well, this guy he's quite intelligent, and he seems to know what he's talking about. And then when you've been hooked in by the reasonableness, that's when the far out stuff comes in. And that, I think, sorry, I won't say his name, but he claims that he's only quoting people what they've seen, and then in that way, if they think they've seen lizards, that's no different from the people because you said like I disagreed with you earlier, like when you said I think people that have seen ghosts, that's quite innocuous because it doesn't lead to somewhere different. I think supernatural thinking always leads to extremes, and like, okay, I saw a ghost, or I've seen a lizard, and it was Queen Elizabeth when she was feeding her corgi. Do you know what I mean? Do you know what I mean? So like I genuinely think that there is a danger to supernatural thinking. But and another thing I disagreed with you on, sorry, or had a matter of difference, was the fact that you think for like the capitalist elites that they're like, oh, good, they believe in this nonsense. Actually, they're quite an angry class that could, if enough people believe in a conspiracy theory, it causes a shift in government. Let me use yet another historical reference. Adolf Hitler. Okay, he believed in something called the Dolchos legend. Okay, the Dolchos myth. This is because Germany didn't lose World War I on the battlefield. Okay, Germany lost World War I because like one of the main reasons. Okay, I'm being careful. One of the most significant reasons was the British naval blockade, and it was like a really slow strangulation of calories in Germany. And German farming just wasn't that efficient, and they're only getting like 1,000 calories out per adult per day. And then people like getting like hangrier and hangrier, like because they're starving, and kids are starving. And so you got the communists saying like, no war in this country. Let's stop the war and let's have a peaceful resolution. And like in the end, like the German people on the home front, they just didn't want to like eat 1,000 calories a day, and so they said like, let's get rid of the Kaiser and end to war. So they didn't lose it. Berlin was never conquered. So right-wing conspiracy theorists in Germany said, "Joe, what? The Jews stabbed us in the back because the Jews run the Communist Party, and we never lost this war." And so Dolchos means stab. So it's a stab in the back legend. Okay, so you can see actually that conspiracy thinking led to one of the most evil and pernicious governments that's ever existed on this planet, that did just inexcusable things. So. And who are the victims of this? Yeah, again, it was like the most anti-Semitic example of all human history. So I can understand actually why a lot of Jewish people feel very vulnerable.
Yeah, because they're always the target of. They're always the go-to target of these nasty, often white supremacists, right wingers. Yeah,
they're the easiest target to go to. Yeah. Like so. Yeah, I completely understand their point of view and their fear in society, and just the repercussions of this way of thinking. And like from myself, my experience of thinking along those lines in my 20s when I was all disenchanted and unemployed, and now in my 30s where my social conditions have risen, and I've just become a much more advanced historian. I was like, oh, how could I think? Like along those lines. I completely changed my way of thinking. But it's hard for people to think themselves out of it. You need to be reasoned out of it. You need to be challenged on those preconceptions. We need to talk to the other side. In essence, that's really important.
Yeah, I mean, it's a constant effort. I mean, they're very slippery. So I'll just say So I mean, I guess that is an example of conspiracy being used to further a political end, like quite a specific political end of establishing the Nazis and finding a blame for losing the war. But someone like by my special shape, like he is basically a libertarian. I guess he's a libertarian capitalist. Quite a lot of them are openly libertarian and capitalists. So I mean, they make their millions or however much they make of it, and it's in their interest to continue capitalism as well. But yeah, of course, fascism definitely runs on conspiracy thinking, definitely. And yeah, in that I will definitely concede. It can be dangerous to the establishment. It's just maybe it depends on what the actual conspiracy is, isn't it? Like,
those libertarians are quite interesting. I think they're an extreme manifestation of the American Constitution, because they're usually Constitution. Like, if it isn't in the Constitution, don't go with it. And so they're really just so ideologically constitutional. Like, and I think it was Ron Paul, wasn't it? He was this massive guy 10 years ago, and he's a libertarian, and they call him Dr. No, because if it's not in the Constitution, he's never voted for it. So he's got the most like nay votes in American politics. But I mean, because of the influence of that American Constitution, that has really influenced, like, obviously it's going to have a massive influence on the culture of Americans, but in intellectual thought, like, this is why they promote like people like Ayn Rand. And like, I think it's a dangerous way of thinking, because it's the absolute autonomy of the individual, and it's very anti-vax, and that's a whole other thing we haven't really even discussed, like the anti-vax movement. Like, why they say paranoid? Haven't they seen, like, if you look at Edward Jenner, who introduced the first vaccine into society, and we've eradicated smallpox from the world. Do you think they would look at that example and think, like, vaccinations are a good thing? Like, polio is almost at a complete end. Like, we've almost cleared it and eradicated that from the world. Like the best way to stop diseases is vaccination. And yet there's a tremendous fear, like a huge phobia around that.
Well, because it all feeds into the system, doesn't it? Like, their system of thinking. You can't trust the mainstream media, you can't trust science, but you can trust, the conspiratorial medias. And obviously there is legitimate concern about something's safety if it's new. But I guess it's just the anxiety level is ramped up. These are anxious people. They're afraid of losing something. They're all afraid of losing something, their identity, or so they're just terrified. It eats them up and shits them out, man. That's the reality of it. It's like nasty. No one really wins from it.
But they're the most vulnerable. They usually come from the most vulnerable groups who are most vulnerable to COVID, and then they advocate for non-vaccination. And that's like a really dangerous place for them to be in, because they're essentially like actively harming their own communities, aren't they? Like with their sway. But they won't believe the mainstream media, but the mainstream media is sorry.
But they're all snowflakes. They have the right to do what they want if they're snowflake individualism, don't they? He's right. They're all unique, magical individuals who can make their choices and don't have to worry about everyone else.
Because they don't
think as enlightened.
But they don't think about society, do they? Yeah, they don't think about society and the way things have been can be impacted there. That's not something that that would ever be on their minds, because they believe that the individual is above society, and I believe that society is always above the individual, and then we should consider maybe not the state, and that's a big problem with the right and with libertarians, that they think the state's got too big, and they want to take your children away from you, and a lot of stuff in care homes which has happened, which is those orphans in care homes are just extremely vulnerable, and society hasn't treated them very well. And this is a great example of how the state, there's a lot of paranoia around there. But the thing is that sometimes, as they've got that kernel of truth in there.
Yeah, exactly.
And that's what's so alluring. You look at a lot of kids that are in orphans and the abuse which they suffer. They've got no one to protect them, so they are the victims of abuse. And I think it's as simple as that. But they would say that no, there's like a wider conspiracy going on there, wouldn't they?
Deep state stuff, like massive distrust of the government, everyone they disagree with is a socialist and or Marxist or something.
Yeah. It's like everything's
It's disturbing.
I don't know how they get away with that one though, because you think you've had a conservative government for the last 10 years. How can everything be the fault of a communist system?
I know.
Doesn't rhyme or reason, does it really?
No.
Like then, as you said, sorry, you go ahead.
No, finish off, mate. Finish off your sentence.
Yeah, well, empiricism is just they're not empirical thinkers, so you can't reason with people who are unreasonable. Perhaps I'm disagreeing with what I've said earlier, where I said we got to reason with them. No.
Well, maybe it's a question of thought. It could be a question of like sheer, you have to keep doing it and doing it. When enough people do it, it'll work. Or maybe there'll always be some element of chaos in the world and some element of conspiracy and falsehood. You just can't do anything about it. Just do what you can. But so I think we should maybe wrap up if you have any.
Yeah. No. I thought we'd arrived to that place. I think we'd discussed this verbatim. So like I don't know if I always think, have I come to any conclusions? Like, because I feel like I've contradicted my earlier self, But as Nietzsche said, if you don't contradict yourself 3 times a day before breakfast, then you're not intelligent, or something like that.
I mean, I've learned a few things. I'll stop being more so dogmatic about conspiracy will always just harmlessly, well, not harmlessly, but like will always lead to the status quo. I guess it can change the status quo. Need to be aware of it. Need to see it as I mean, I've always known it can be insidious and nasty and a way of bringing people on board. But that's been it. Yeah, I'll be more vigilant about that. That'll be my homework.
Okay, I'm still going to fear people that say they've seen ghosts as well. Like,
we'll save that for a spirituality one, dude.
Okay.
I guess I do see a slight difference between time lizards who control the world and like spirits and stuff, which have existed. People have believed since the beginning of time. But anyway, I don't know.
Okay.
Let's stay that for another one.
All right. Arrivederci, my friend. Goodbye.
Adios.